And a button is pressed.
Welcome back, after our hiatus, to Exalted Essence, the proper style this time, Crimes of Nature. Last time was a side story about the Fae that the Hearth of, the Crimes of Nature sent into the underworld to investigate the machinations of the Weaver upon the Loom of Flesh, Ruby Gauntlet Tyrant, and their general underworld shenanigans involving manipulating the ley lines of the upper world. The Fae being the Fae, had interesting interactions with everything around them. Even the static, dead, calcified underworld had to bend a little bit to the sheer narrative force of a whole bunch of Raksha just kind of bumbling around doing shit. Unfortunately for them, it didn't have to bend very far, and because the underworld itself is somewhat anathema to the Raksha and vice versa, it didn't end well for, well, any of them, actually. One of them is still technically alive, maybe, the last time we saw them, in a bottle, being held by a Death Lord. Everyone else had a varying degree of dying horribly, or being unmade or peeled apart, or other gruesome comedic things happening, like, deciding that a gun barrel would be a toasty place to sleep and then being fired into the sky. Rest in peace, Wildcat Strike, you will never be forgotten. Also, there was a skeleton that you all befriended, and the name is escaping me, but I'm sure Chad is going to remember it, so I'm bringing that up. Crawled into the Amogus cannon. It's a turtle, thank you. But
turtle with a gun.
After that whole sequence, we can switch back to the big map. As our heroes are our heroes like are the frogs. Are still topside and did not directly receive the information from the True Fae expedition. True Fae. Changeling is on my mind. Raksha expedition. But interpretation of the ley lines and general flow of energy down and echoes back up, as well as sending the Gygax down to spawn, gives the impression that they certainly rattled a hell of a lot of pots and pans down there. Now, this is basically, to be open, there is one other little bit of business that I need to get to on the recording for anybody who's catching up after the fact or did not catch the pregame. You may notice that Doc is not in the Roll20 list of names right now, and that is because, very, very understandably, Doc ran all of Lancer. Doc is running and playing D&D, did Eclipse phase prepared and stuff. Doc needs a break. Doc is kind of burnt out when we switched systems, gave it the best try, but just did not have the same understanding of Essence as previous information.
Doc has table fatigue, so old man has gone into isolation to do old man things.
Yes, old man is vanishing off to the side of the narrative. I will bring back Doc in the last session or two. I have plans for what old man is doing behind the scenes, but for now, rest well our heroes, etc. But yeah, this is kind of the last run-up topside before the crew goes down of recruiting, planning, and going down, because once you go down there, that's not a strong point of no return, but that is going to be you're down there to finish the job. So, right. Last things to check on, last people to draft into the plan.
I'm consulting the tablet to see if I am missing any stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one bit of prep that I feel like retroactively would have started gearing up as our siege works were falling into place here around Ghost Zone. But at some point, just during an evening while everybody is camped out, the usual amount of repose pre-dialogue rumbling would get everyone's attention.
This is very usual. It's a routine at this point.
Yep.
He then proceeds to root about in portable office and retrieves from it a tome. Well kept among his tomes, but one that has not really been seen, brandished about for a while.
Is it? Are you gonna give me another lecture?
Tome that will be like you will like slide over into position near whatever fire that we have on that night. Set up thing to put tome on, dramatically slam tome onto the platform. Lean close. And speak in a surprisingly audible whisper. Ghost stories.
I'll make the popcorn.
All right,
What,
I'm down.
what about these ghost stories?
Slow breathe in. Any given community will retain such tales as are of use and of enjoyment to them and their experiences. These are a carefully curated canon of illustrative examples of the practice of the art of exorcism. Such incidents that have been of interest, professional or recreational, to my forebearers in the carrying out of our art over the preceding centuries.
It's a pretty.
Over our venturing this year, it is at this point I think become quite clear that each of us is in our own way the sort who prefers to overturn or redirect an opponent rather than see them destroyed unless necessary. And in order to be able to do that effectively, when working across spiritual lines into very different states of being, one must build an appropriately foundational understanding of what it means to cross those lines. For those who have remained beyond death, it is one of the fundamental rookie mistakes of any who enter into my art to feel that they, wishing to be polite and respectful, will treat the restless dead exactly the same way that they would treat another living person. It's a pleasant enough line of thought, but it is very closely buried beneath its surface. A great deal of naivete which must be overturned in order to begin to properly engage with those beyond. And anyway, so during camping nights, Repose will have tales from the crypt to bring out fucked up stories about ghost stuff, which, per their illustrative nature, a lot of them are about things going wrong to people who engage in some critical misunderstanding of ghost stuff. And it can then be followed up by notes about, yeah, so here's what went wrong.
This is how they did not treat this situation with the proper gravity, etc.
Here are things that you take for granted because you are alive. Like, are you someone who can hear their own heartbeat? Are you someone who feels every breath that you draw and release? Are you someone who can count the number of times that you blink in a day? Some are, most aren't.
What do I roll to see if Yang has a moment of realization?
About what?
How close he's come to fucking dying several times in a row.
Oh man, let's call that. Let's call that
Some kind of integrity, I think.
Yeah, that's integrity finesse. I'm gonna say.
3 plus. All right, a simple 8.
All right, so you don't have a you don't have the realization that makes you completely fall apart. But as you were listening to the divisions between what is living and what is dead, how the dead work, the things that the living take for granted, there is this really almost leaden weight sewn into the top of your shoulders and through your arms into of just
I wonder what this story is for.
Wait, hang on. You mean you don't think about that? Wait,
Yeah,
this
and
is
gradually accumulating more and more notes of most living people don't feel this way. What do you mean? What?
What do you? Why do you keep telling them this is weird? I thought we were all on board that we all did this.
Are you not always measuring your pulse? Just to be sure?
I thought we were all exactly on the liminal stage of stepping into death and aware of this. The fuck is
What do you
wrong
mean you
with
guys
you?
aren't the precipice at all times?
Milan takes an audible bite of, I don't know, probably lamb.
Well,
That's
I
kinda-
was at one time, and then I got out of the army.
Feel like
Too busy thinking of stuff I need to do.
main like overarching practical notes that Repose would probably be looking to put out there to keep in mind when, particularly when dealing with any old ghosts, anything that has managed to remain not dead for a span of time. There is a tipping point where it becomes increasingly inaccurate to talk about ghost emotions in the same words you would use for living emotions. That you can have an old ghost that is like dwelling on and revisiting something that when it was alive might have been unpleasant, but as something that's been dead for 100 years, all of the like old sensations have fallen off of it, and it's the motions of the familiarity of it is itself fundamentally pleasant and overrides the old context. That a war ghost isn't fighting out of fear for its life or fear for its loved ones. It has reached that point that fighting is just what it likes to do.
This is the only thing I remember that gives me
its
anything.
identity. You know, just standing in line, sword, shield, nice hat, shouting at another line, yeah. Charge,
do you mean?
then we crash.
Doesn't get better than this.
What do you mean there's other things out there? Sounds fake.
Just guys
Other
being
things.
dudes.
This whole thing gives me a headache.
Geists being dudes.
Nice.
I will add on that probably something that Repose would especially reiterate when going into the shallows of the underworld to go further is a lot of ghosts don't really have selfhood, in the sense of some of them are just there because it is the lingering regret or will or desire of the person, and the rest of it has already kind of moved on or is buried way under and it needs time to come back out. So a lot of ghosts are just going to be on autopilot.
Or yes, an importance of, it is easy to underestimate it's easy to misappraise in either direction how
Yes.
much of a living person is still present in their shade. Because on the one hand, a lot of it may have fallen off. On the other hand, a lot of it might just be laying dormant until an appropriate reminder appears. When, again, you can take for granted that as a living being, there's a lot of automatic meat stuff that is happening that is poking you around, even in what feels like your lowest or most relaxed or otherwise least engaged states of mind. Like,
you're
what if you
saying
could
is
just
that-
forget to fall towards the ground because you no longer innately possess weight and just drift off on the breeze and end up somewhere else? What if you could forget to not fall through the ground and just kind of sink and lay buried for a while because nothing is going to wake you up?
What if you just sit there long enough that you turn into ore?
That would
That's
be cool.
That is where natural soul steel comes from.
That sounds awesome.
To some, it is. Such are the ways of the world unliving.
And I would very much like to keep on living for the foreseeable future. Which brings me to a thought I've had. So, we've gotten the reports that our little Fey distraction is done its job. We should probably consider the consequences of what that results might be before we go down there.
Well, we did send our little imp associate to infiltrate below. We would be waiting on a report from them. Or
Yeah,
any sort
so-
of omen that suggested they had failed.
Okay, so there are a small handful of things topside, and let us roll to see which one happens. Okay. And just type them out for myself to know which is which.
Right, another comparison Repose would be sure to bring up in Crash Course on informed ghost interactions that having like a bunch of signs to look for the possibility that you might be interacting with a ghost without fully falling into the range of its senses.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other main fields of ghost weirdness is that all of their original senses are no longer exactly there.
They no
And
longer
they
work
can
the same
drift
way.
off into different means of interacting with reality. So much as if you were, shouting at someone to try and get their attention and they keep not responding no matter how loud you yell, consider that person might be deaf and change your tactics in order to...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Commonly, they can sense life forces, or blood, or the flows of energy, or breath. Breath is very common. And sometimes it is a situation where they just kind of opted out of having senses, and sometimes they are very grateful to have them back, and sometimes they will be enraged to have them back.
Now the next layer past that of, okay, even if you are perceptible to them, you might be getting perceived in a way that they can't really parse at the moment. Comparisons being made to, alright, if someone is intoxicated, a lot of the words you say to them probably don't make it through, so adjust accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts now are if ghost sense
Oh, wow.
breath. What happens if I try the big breath, the big dragon breath? How noticeable would that be?
Very,
Barely.
and depending on the context, may be taken as a threat.
Good to know.
Because the big breath is both a dinner bell and also can obliterate spirits.
Signs unclear.
So yeah, like that is a very contextual. It'll get a reaction probably. What kind you want to evaluate on the ground.
Good to know.
Probably of note very early on in this lecture cycle slash, horror story matinee is that, yes, so, they taste blood, they crave blood, actually so do you. This is one of the things that actually hasn't changed from living thing to dying thing.
It's just that they have a lot less of it to go around, so they get a little feral about it.
Less of it to go around, less underlying necessity of it to be happening, and accordingly, why, yes, they understand that you sitting in front of them are made of meat and full with delicious fluids. Yeah, much as you might appreciate that both a chicken and a bear are full of meat and blood that you could consume.
Yes! Exactly.
Takes a moment to consider his dinner
That,
and resumes eating.
and that on the scale of things, we are more as unto bear.
Yeah, most ghosts with any control over themselves that can evaluate you reasonably accurately are going to leave you the hell alone. It's the desperate ghosts and the ghosts that are in a position of mind where they're going to make a mistake and go aggro. Those are the ones you have to worry about actually getting violent. But you are of the stature spiritually at this point where most ghosts that see you are going to be more wondering how to get the hell out of your way and not get, juiced, rather than what do I get out of you? It is the same way that you are in essence for Dragonblood and you walk into a rural village that hasn't had an exaltation in 500 years. Most people are going to look at you and go, oh god. It may be a pleasant one, but it is definitely oh shit. Something is about to happen big.
Bigness takes many forms.
An outside problem has entered the village.
Yes. Yeah, there are many hungry ghosts in the underworld, and they are kind of treated as environmental hazards a lot of the time, or pseudo community pets, depending on their level of reason left. It's weird, because that's all the meat driving instincts that got lost and are confused and angry and hungry about not having the meat instincts around to pilot around. Some ghosts actually are able to command and bond their own hungry ghosts or other ones.
Hunger Ghost is like an animal, when we have experts here who can appreciate just how vague and open of a statement that is.
Yang is probably just like chewing on lunch, just like, fuck does that mean? So, turns out the first event is going to be your response from the guy Gixa. Probably during this ghost story, I'm gonna call for a finesse awareness roll from everyone. While this is gonna be in the middle of one of the stories proper, not one of the explanations. Like during one of the big spooky crescendos of following the trail of blood back to the hut to find the nice older man who had been a war veteran, and now his blood-soaked lower ghost is going out to repeat what it did on the battlefield, because that's all it knows.
What did you say? Finesse awareness?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Repose, Milan, and Yang are
I got
able...
one hell of a headache splitting, so nope, Angler doesn't pay attention.
Yeah, this is a lot to take in for Angler. Yeah, Yang, Milan, and Repose can notice that the shadows being cast by the fire are now no longer actually following the shapes of whatever is being cast. You can look behind them, and it is now just kind of... The best way you could describe it is the shadows are going, if nobody looks at me too closely, I can just kind of vibe, right? They're just kind of vague. It's like you turned the shadow quality in a game down to low, and now it is all just kind of blobs that are kind of like the thing that are casting it.
I
And-
hate to interrupt this story, but we have a guest.
The shadows begin to coalesce as the attention turns around to the ghosts. Or not the ghosts, the shadows. And there's just kind of the sensation of, oh, and I thought I was being sneaky. Before the shadows coalesce up behind Yang and lurch up into a murky, dark projection of the Gaia Gixa, which, again, just is a constantly shifting mass of different forms and shapes and limbs popping in and out fractally, fingers growing, hands growing fingers. The same strange meat beast that you knew before has projected itself through the shadow at you.
I am going to give it some travel jerky.
It drops clean through it because it is a shadow, but it actually kind of snaps at it, and then it falls through the jaw, and it goes at the ground, and it begins to kind of claw at the ground, and just annoyedly, just like, But then it sits there, thinks for a moment, and then puts a hoof on top of it that merges into what could only be described as some sort of, like, pincer? But the hoof is still a part of it. Like, it splits down the middle cleft into a pincer around it. And as the
Fungible
shadow...
hoof, of course.
Yeah. A shadow wraps around it, the travel jerky just kind of starts desiccating as the essence in it is just being vampirized out into the shadow until it begins to crumble into coal and ash. Yes.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this works. Yes, new trick. We'll have to remember, yes. Yes, us. Yes. The leaf dragon person, yes. All dragon people, yes. Had mission. Underground. Underground, yes. I am underground. Underground, top ground. Is confusing? Is not unlike home in own way. News. Yes, news. Faye, Raksha, Faye, outside, unshaped. And there's just this horrible noise as clearly the Malfian dialect word for them comes out, and it absolutely sounds like a vile insult.
Fuck, you just called me?
Is not them, is them, is not you. But yes, is arrived, it is clearly thinking not just of how to describe them, but how to describe what happened. Is arrived, is noticed, confused, is all sides confused. Very boldly confused, unaware of confused, and then dead things very confused, aware of confused. Then approach large metal turtle? Turtle? It just kind of vaguely bends its form into what looks like a immense tortoise with something projecting out of the back. This turtle shape, yes?
Like, sort of, I guess. I could see where you're trying to go with that, but yeah, that's a turtle.
Fire wand?
Fire wand? What is fire wand? As it kind of snaps back into just a protean shape.
The thing on the back.
That's a fire wand.
I
It's big, but that's a fire wand, all right.
Wordlessly, Angler is going to take out some paints and begin sketching what he thinks the creature is describing, and then look to it and say, close, different.
Finesse crafts, please.
Okay. 8. 4 successes.
Yeah. And you literally just kind of drew an abstract, large, like hand cannon version of a fire wand coming out of it, and it points. Yes, that is shape. More bones, though. More bones is metal and bones.
All right, the bone's good.
Unclear. Did not want to approach. It seemed touchy.
Do the bones have any economic value?
What is economy?
That's
Oh,
a good
no.
fucking question, little man.
Milan slightly vibrates but does not activate. Looks to the rest of the group. War Strider?
Oh, is that
Well,
what that
probably,
is?
right?
Nodding.
Yeah, it's the quadruped.
Worst.
Oh, jeez.
Worst. Try. Worst. Try. What?
Big metal creature, very angry, wants to hurt.
Yes. Oh, yes. Faye got. It actually begins to giggle to itself. Faye went inside large tube. Faye did not come out of large tube. Lots of fire came out of large tube.
Why did Faye go inside large tube?
Why would anyone go inside a large tube?
There is a shrug with 15 different shoulders.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, fair enough. I shouldn't be asking you.
Is outside of large building, is very large. Reminds me of home. Inside building was difficult. I followed in, doors opened. Doors opened when asked politely was unusual. Did not expect. Went down large set of stairs, had really bad, uncomfortable. No feeling. No bad feeling from stairs. Stayed above stairs. They did not come back from stairs.
Can you describe the feeling at all?
There is a trembling silence before. Let me see if it can actually make itself say this. An incredibly different tone of voice comes out of it, to the point where it grows a secondary mouth out of its side, and it is just a much more obviously shaped to speak Malfian dialect Old Realm. And it is guttural and just like sibilant and hissing. And Repose can tell what it says is, I heard the screams of my brothers.
As you would.
And then the mouth just snaps back, and the guy Gixit doesn't even seem to recognize it said anything in response. Its mind has just gone blank over being asked that entirely. It just is like, and not thinking about it again. This piece of me is entirely too small to comprehend what that was.
Milan is sort of sketching out a diagram. So, generic big building in center, just off to one side putting gun turtle. Was there anything else around the structure that reminded you of home?
Many man shapes? Many man shapes with pointy teeth and claws. Like many. Blood apes, many. As if...
Milan is just writing down skeleton army. Just making an assumption.
Skeleton warriors.
Many, it kind of, the shadows very carefully kind of lean around impossibly through the light towards the fire and point towards some of the discarded bones from the meat being eaten. Those, yes, those, the inside bits. Inside.
Bones.
Bones, yes, bones. But
Whose
bones not outside, yes?
Yes,
No,
bones are not
Not
outside.
generally, no. Yeah,
Many outside bones, then.
that's
Maybe.
weird.
Got it, skeleton army.
It starts thinking as well. Is feeling of is I don't remember how they would address this. Is feeling of similar to progenitor of direct of direct father shape maker of, but is wrong off in distance, and that'll just be a finesse or fortitude occult to figure out what the hell it's saying.
Cool. Which is now
Doom
Jess.
identifying.
Hecatonkire.
Yeah, just sliding in with a very, very well practiced number of hands, number of heads, number of teeth.
Many. It is many.
Teeth.
Many. It basically, it did not get a good look at what it was, but for the chat and for everybody else, Hecatonkire are basically the equivalent of the underworld equivalent of a second circle demon. They are budded bits of the Neverborn that are very mad. They can be third circle, they can be second circle. They are usually in the response to a Hecatonkire being present is usually like, call in solars or don't go over there. And from the guy Gix's sound of it, it's not really doing much, it's just around. It's there.
Where was it in relation to turtle and bone people?
It sketches out it tries in the ground before it realizes, oh, I don't actually have any hands to dig into the ground, before starting to arrange the shadows into a circle. And at about, northeast, 2 o'clock-ish is Turtle. And then off to the west is the X for the Hecatonkire. Southwest is the skeletons, and then southeast is the large, many dudes with fangs.
We have our choice between the War Strider and a Hecatonkire.
Turtle shape in front of doors.
Alright, so I guess riding off of that much successes from thinking about
Yeah.
Doom's identifying for the Hecaton.
Yeah, if you wanna get anything else, go ahead.
Yeah, I suppose then, yeah, I would like to explicitly, in doing a bit of a monster identification interview with our buddy Freddy here, try to look for if there are any signs that the Hecaton is there because it's being compelled magically to remain there, or if it is just loitering near a place of power, as large creatures will sometimes do.
It seems to just be kind of loafing. It like the idea that you get is that this, you probably from a role like that, and generally from your family's interactions, you are aware of third circle necromancy and the weird shit it can do, including just pulling a soul steel fortress out of nowhere overnight. This is probably what happened, and especially with that and all of the ley lines being dragged in, it's very likely that it was just a local, it's a local behemoth equivalent that wandered over, like, what the, and then it just started loafing around because, where else am I going? I have nothing to do aside from scream, and this place is at least novel. The one thing that you would say is there is probably a binding on it to not attack the fortress, because if there were no restrictions on it, it probably would have tried to crack the thing open to get the delicious life juice inside, so the Weaver probably put some sort of binding on it or on the fortress to be like, no, mine.
if there's anything active on it, it's probably calming it rather than
Angering it.
calling it to action.
Would there be any information on one of these in the slates of demon summoning I got from
No.
Koi? Okay.
No, that is all Malpheus. That has nothing on the underworld. Like, hearing the abstraction from Repose and the Gygaxa, you can kind of be like, okay, if the Neverborn are the Titans in Malpheus that got killed rather than went to prison, this could be the equivalent of one of the bigger chunks of soul, but that's about all you would get.
Ooh, okay. So let's do some creative learning. I'm going to try and get as much information on what this could possibly be out of the Gygaxa and Repose,
Mhm.
and then cross-reference for a similar or opposite demon within my tablets.
Oh no. I'm just gonna say up front, this is a scale of demon that you do not have the capability to summon anything that can match.
Not summoning a demon, but see if I can get information. Like, if I can hypothesize information on this. Or
Just
equivalent
using demons
information.
as a sounding board.
Okay, yeah. Finesse occult difficulty 8.
All right, and
This is an extremely abstract thing that you are doing.
I'm going to use my ally Koi because I'm using the slates, and I'm spending an excellency.
Okay.
Not good enough.
Nah, this is... The Gygaxa is not giving you nearly enough of a physical description, and plus, you are getting at this point that physical description for a sufficiently powerful demon can basically mean nothing. They have preferred forms. They could just do whatever they want sometimes, though. Behavioral patterns is what you want, and right now this thing's just loafing.
So after cross-referencing, I come up with the Mahjong demon again and just go, well, that got nowhere.
Yeah, this is something where, like, you would have to do direct observation to get a better shot of identifying, which, you know, you could, but that involves being nearby enough to directly observe it and be observed.
That's not something I want to do right now.
Okay, so any other questions or orders to give small demon friend?
I'm trying to remember. I had a question regarding inside the tower. I'm trying to remember what it was. Remind me again. What was the bad feeling it conveyed to us when it sensed?
It basically
Not
said
really.
it hurt the Neverborn screaming.
Okay.
Yes. There is proximity to the labyrinth down there.
It could hear the labyrinth, and being a demon, that is like hearing dead, very large relatives screaming constantly. So there is...
Okay.
You get the sense that if you ordered it to go in the labyrinth, it would just probably unmake itself rather than follow the order. Like, there is nothing you can do to make it go down there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Think that's all the information I had.
One question. Did you hear any voices, any things that did not seem to fit where they came from? Like from those bones or from any other beasts or creatures around, or from the metal beast, the turtle?
Metal whispered slightly? The whole fortress whispered tiny bits. Did not listen, was uncomfortable.
But the turtle whispered?
Yes.
Can you describe how it whispered?
It just makes a very uncomfortable set of nonverbal, like, susurrations of just sibilant, awful, creepy, invasive to the ears noises.
I try to glean what that sounds like. Hold on. Before I even do that, pause. Okay. Is there anything here you can point to that it sounds like? Any of us, trees, rocks,
No.
flowing water, the fire?
No, it's just like it is shaking its multiple heads. No.
Okay. Thank you.
During your time there, what kind of hats did you see? Tall hat, wide hat, frilly hat, sharp hat. Just that being a lead into, persons of interest? Ghosts of interest. Do we have any sightings of subordinates?
Hat? Hat is flesh tangle on top of head, yes?
Going to offer up helping it with some war dice. Diagramming out various hats of antiquity.
Just kind of
Stats.
points
Yeah,
at
everyone
Milan's
else is like
head.
seeing Repose sketching out old command and officer helmets from different periods of the shogunate and recent history.
Military hats, scholarly hats, administrative hats.
Hats. Oh! The not meat shapes on skull face. Yes. Think word. Several.
When you
It-
take the flesh of another thing and shape it and wear it visibly to show that you are stronger.
Oh, yes.
Hats.
Simple. Yes. And it starts to describe some of what it saw. As the general gist that you get is that there is a very, very eclectic time period amount of the dead. It appears to be that the outside is mostly locally drafted, just the dead of the area who have been either persuaded, compelled, or otherwise kind of doing this for the sake of not getting obliterated from all sorts of periods of history. The oldest seems to be maybe like 100 or 2 years before the Great Contagion. They're not like that is old, but for the army of a Death Lord, that is pretty fresh. That is almost certainly local resources. The major folks that he saw would be like the skeleton, the ghost war commander that the Fae met. The guy Gixa could give a quick description of the skeleton that they befriended that seemed to have no actual significance, but the guy Gixa seemed that to the guy Gixa it obviously had some sort of significance because they were talking to it. But in general, it seems like the outer dead are probably there as repellent to anybody that is not of your scale and higher, and more as a warning system if you, in particular, show up. Whatever major actual personal guard he has is probably inside the building, closer or hidden.
That
So
does
he's
sound like
using
him.
a
He's
skeleton army as a watchdog.
more one to invent his allies than recruit them.
Yeah, like this is very much a just kind of slap together quick and dirty resources on the outside, and yeah, from Repose's family knowledge, he is much more the kind of person who will geomantically and or necromantically create and engineer anything he actually gives a shit about putting up a resistance against a serious threat.
If anything, it's notable that he's been forced to assemble his own home rather than slither into someone else's.
Yeah, as Milan noted, everybody else is hearing. So wait, the army of like 10,000 skeletons and hungry ghosts in the Hecaton Kyre is the distraction.
Well, that's information that we can somehow use. I guess we can make a skeleton destruction device.
Bone replacer.
We know where one of the two machines are.
And unless we find that we need to bring some manner of large engine or formation of our own into play, it should be viable to circumvent much of what he has surrounded himself with. If we arrive at... If we conclude that it will be enough for simply the 5 of us go in there and do as we do, then we may be able to sneak past. Or if we determine that we need greater support, then we will need some way to clear a path for whatever guests we invite along. Perhaps? Looking at Obsidian, like, war guy, tactics guy, huh?
I mean, how it's skeletons, right? We just hit them.
While we've been having this entire discussion, Angler's just been drawing more and more with the turtle. And at some point, he's going to look up to Freddy and kind of like point towards the paint. You want to use paint? Paint, not eat paint. To see if maybe Freddy would, just via stream of consciousness, draw anything else we could get out of Freddy.
The shadows kind of dip themselves into the colored paint, go straight through the paint, through the bottom of the palette. Annoyedly kind of dab at it again a couple of times before remembering the trick that it did with the meat, and very thin, extruded, like pseudopod tendril touches one of the bits of like dark green and just kind of sucks the vitality and the pigment straight out of it until it is now like kind of the base material and now crumbling, before touching the paper and having the coloration flow out onto it like blood veins as they settle into place. As it is now putting like a much more visible metallic sheen on top of the metal parts, underlining which parts are very large bone, like very obviously taken from some sort of immense, near behemoth-sized creature, or like maybe... Actually, hang on. And now do a finesse occult roll.
Okay, let me grab my occult sheet. That's not me. Wait, occult? You mean
Sagacity.
Yes, sagacity. My mistake. I have been saying occult this whole time.
We knew what you meant, but I just wanted to make sure. 5.
That's... Angler just starts to get a really uncomfortable feeling at looking at the shapes of the bones and how they are integrated into the body. That's not the body plan of something like a turtle. That's the body plan of something different. That's... The ribs are too thin and tall. They are splayed out wide and like lashed to themselves. The spine across the top is super thin and has had multiple different vertebrae braced against themselves. The claws and the talons are super thin. It's very sinuous. It's very draconic.
Oh. Oh no.
Oh no. This might be a war strider that had the remains of a lesser elemental dragon woven into it as a sacred way of honoring the dead originally, and then a Death Lord saw it and was like, it's free real estate! Oh no!
Yeah, Angler's going to kind of pinch the bridge of his nose, look over towards Repose, and also towards Milan and ask, would you two take a look at this? I'm not actually, and also, well, I'm sorry, Yang as well, because Yang is a font of knowledge on these things. Could you take a look at this? I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at, but I'm starting to get that feeling in the back of my spine that says danger.
Oh, the danger tinkle. I love those.
Milan starts choking on his dinner.
Milan can actually recognize that the skull has been broken up into pieces and interwoven with the metallic plating that makes up the head.
Give me a moment, Angler.
Repose is very tensed up. Moat hops up into position and is getting ready to do the usual snarling at unclean things at the diagram. Then takes a moment to like kind of listen to Repose's general situation, and then instead looks very excited. There's a bit of moment of vibration settling in for Repose.
The shadows creep away from Repose during this.
We have, until now, confronted and defeated 3 of the 4 spirits that the Weaver would keep in his employ. And we are aware that he has kept the defeated essence of the previous spirits about in the hopes of rejuvenating them at some point and returning them to his service. Tapping the diagram. This would serve as an appropriate vessel for such things. Like that, and like you can hear that that's the bad news, but he then continues into, and if it is a suitable vessel for one manner of spirit, then if we can successfully pry them from that vessel, something else could take their place. And then his great ancient weapon would be our great ancient weapon. We would have an engine to throw against his fortress.
You're saying that's the one you want me to get inside?
Four elements.
You and anyone else who would be able, you need not go alone.
If he is bound
Yet
the
some amount of this terrible opportunity is probably vibrating back up the family line into the ancestors of, he's doing the thing.
The ancestral council doesn't know why, but they're feeling the sports. They're feeling the sports right now. They can't explain it, but they know that something real sick is about to happen.
All of the temple cats perked up and looked west.
Yes.
I have a thought. So, if he has bound these 4 nega elements to this war strider, that's missing the 5th, the one he couldn't make. There's got to be a way to exploit that, exploit the lack of wood in this. Well, Milan wants to do some thinking about the elements and what is the weakness of what happens when you remove wood from the 5.
Give me a fortitude sagacity roll specifically. And I will also let Yang do a finesse navigation roll to think about something.
As Milan just sort of...
What even is my navigate?
Looks
Fine, of
at
course.
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Yang.
it was your survival and everything. Whoa, God!
I did type that right, so
Somebody
Yeah,
thinking
no, you
about
did.
wood?
Yeah, it's just, Yang is just like, wait, you're talking about what happens when you get rid of like the wood element from the cycle? Hello?
yes, I'm the wood aspect.
Vulnerabilities of wood? Yes, good day.
Engler,
All right.
I don't want you to get into that War Strider. I want
Why
him in the War Strider. And I point
I'm
to
wood
Yang.
aspect.
I want to put Yang in the War Strider.
Oh, I want to be in the War Strider.
you
Yang is just like, why do you want me to? Oh wait, what you want? What? Yeah.
I'll get in the robot,
I
sure.
don't want to pilot that thing. I
Water
think I
and
might have
nurtures
to get in
wood.
it to get the
They
pilot
should both
out.
go.
Yeah, like
You get the pilot
number
out,
one, yes.
then we
So-
get Yang in.
Get in the robot, old man.
So I'm going to synthesize the two roles. I'm going to start with what Milan gets, and then I'm going to work into what Yang gets. Milan, thinking about it purely in just the academic terms learned from the heptagram and the occult training. So the 5 elemental cycle has a lot of nuances to it. There's, the cycle of reinforcements, the cycle of oppositions, the cycle of, just support. So thinking about just the very basics of you take the pentagram and you yank out the wood part. Wood nurtures fire, which means that fire is innately not going to have the same level of power to draw upon if there is not wood present, because fire feeds off of wood, because fire burns wood, and consumes life in that sense. Additionally, water nurtures wood, so there is going to be an imbalance of water because it is not draining into anything unless something is being addressed. Yeah, okay. Glad somebody remembered. The fuck, sorry, that derailed me. I did not remember it. I did not expect people to remember my little joke to myself. So the two of the major symptoms would be an imbalance of water and fire being kind of guttered out, which is likely why the fire elemental, the one that has not been shown, is in the War Strider to account for that imbalance, to make up for excess water and underwater and underflowed fire. Now, in terms of what it would do to account for not having the wood present and otherwise doing that, it's unclear. It would have to depend on what it actually is doing. Then Yang starts thinking about it. Because, yeah, there's the whole elemental cycle and all of that. And there's all the other things that you can do. But that's also kind of missing, if you'll pardon the expression, the forest for the trees. If you don't have life, you don't have dynamism. You don't have change. You don't have switches between life and death. You don't have vitality. You don't have evolution. You don't have adaptation. All of the elements are incredibly important. But if you are missing the cycle of life and death in your robot, that means that it cannot innately, very easily, handle anything outside of its scripting, or anything outside of what its elements can gang up and deal with.
Oh my
If-
god, the War Strider's running on standby mode.
It's basically almost certainly running on a script. It is, and it is also likely why it has a more animated pilot, even if it is an elemental of sorts piloting it, because it has no vitality, it has no nothing. And again, without wood, it is a dead zone. There is no life or death to draw upon. There is an absence of both of them. And not even in the sense of a void, because there have been, from both Raposa's familiarity with the Weaver and your interactions with the elementals, void elementals are actually something that you can kind of approximate through several different elements. Like, the wind elemental could be described as a void elemental because it was complete stagnation, the absence of wind, the absence of movement, the absence of everything. Just stillness, complete stasis. An absence of wood entirely could be the void, but the void in the sense of the underworld is its own almost extant thing. The abyss, oblivion, it is consumptive. It is not just a dead zone. It is a dead zone that wants to consume everything and unmake it. Or if it has a want at all, that is projected upon it by the Death Lords and the Neverborn. So, the simple absence of wood does not intrinsically mean the presence of void. It can be used as a stopgap to get there, but it is much more vulnerable than using actual necromancy. Which means that any introduction of true life and death doesn't really have anything to get in the way. If you were fighting, let's say, the Weaver directly, and you were fighting necromancy, you would have a hell of an uphill battle actually using the wood element against him, because he would have ways of just kind of snapping his fingers and erasing it. Not corrupting it, not turning it into an underworld version, just kind of waving his hands and toggling life to dead. But he's not there. And this thing almost certainly does not have that capacity. So it is a fragile, unbalanced ecosystem that doesn't even really have the concept of an ecosystem. It doesn't have a complete cycle. All you really need to do is kind of tap it on the shoulder and introduce it to entropy and renewal, and all sorts of interesting shit's probably going to start happening.
Oh, I want to plug Yang into that reactor.
It is a object that literally, in its current state, can only exist in the underworld, because the moment it is exposed to a concentrated enough source of wood element, it is being thrown into an environment where antimatter is going to touch matter, or an air-gapped vacuum seal is
Can't
punctured.
believe me having a cat crawl into the furnace is foreshadowing.
It was!
I don't know how that happened, but that's pretty funny.
You keep doing this, and I love it so much!
So, information we got. Angler, good news. This thing has too much blood/water in it.
Okay, so what does that mean for fighting it?
If we can get Yang in there to restart the cycle of life and death, that thing is going to be like an ocean you can tap into.
When you say that thing, you mean the
Warp
the
Strider.
walker. Okay. What about the thing that's piloting it? What will happen to it?
Doesn't
Shall
matter.
I make a roll? Question to Darren.
Yeah, go ahead.
5 successes of what would happen if I just kick on the elements again, the cycle of elements again. What would happen to
The end result that it would be that it reaches an equilibrium. You know enough as a sorcerer and an alchemist, and by secondary trade, that equilibrium is an end state. How you get to equilibrium often involves a lot of shenanigans. The resting state does not actually reflect how chaotic everything leading up to the resting state was. It will eventually get to a point where it is a stable cycle, but, a fire that has, fire dust thrown into it will get to a stability point after the explosions. So, in sheer occult knock-on effects, you can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but you can tell, just freely, it's going to be violent. It's going to be extremely chaotic, whipping back and forth as the cycle reassesses itself and has to restabilize into a 5-way wheel rather than a 4-way with a stopgap.
It's not gonna lie, it's gonna be violent. Once Yang gets in there, you might not want to be in there anymore. And then I explained the whole equilibrium thing that Darren said.
So what you're
I'll be
saying is
fine.
it might not be a bad idea to save my plan for the other Strider of trying to get me inside, and instead just be the plan to get Yang to Dragon.
That might be the best move.
We just shove you down the turret? I don't know. Okay, we'll figure it out. That's something
Yeah,
We should probably figure out where the reactor is
techniques-
first.
The techniques that you have devised for infiltrating the casing in the first place, those should still be relevant here. Now, if you think there would be some risk in allowing this technique to be seen, that perhaps the next machine we encounter, they may have had some opportunity to plan a counter move. It's a possible concern, but
So
we're
my
confident that we
thinking,
will move swiftly enough from one manner to the next that they would not have time to adapt then. Or that
I
you
think
would have
getting
time to
access
counter
to this
adapt.
machine is more important than any kind of element of surprise because it can give us access to this fortress.
it might also provide the tool we need to deal with the Hekatonkar.
Now,
And not saying this one out loud, Angler is certainly going like, oh yeah, I get to have a one-on-one fight with the fire elemental inside the cockpit of a dragon. This sounds like the best day ever. Let's do this.
now, Yang,
Yes.
as we have observed in a few passing details over preceding nights, you are one among the living who is well acquainted with the boundaries of mortality,
Yes, that's a polite way to put it.
as I do. You can use this to your benefit.
To drive a robot.
Slowly taking out other, more private tome that is
I fucking know it.
found indiscreetly. Now, it is widespread and common knowledge the occurrence of possession as a phenomenon when a spiritual entity attempts to forcibly seize a body and make
They
use of
take
it.
over the meat. Or the rocks sometimes.
That is the interaction most oft spoken of because it is unpleasant and unwanted and should be chased off whenever it should occur. The means
good
by which this
sometimes?
occurs, though, consider instead the case where one voluntarily offers access to their form to a spirit
Forever?
within the terms of some manner of contract. In this case, were you willing to partake in it, it would naturally be backed by perhaps you knowing a brother who is quite practiced in driving out unwanted tenants.
Moat just raises a paw and pops all of the claws out.
And more importantly, I would expect that whoever we would invite to go with you as an ally in this endeavor would be someone I would be able to appropriately vouch for the character of before inviting them into such an agreement. And propose will then continue to carry on with a lot of mumbling about arcane details on the subject, but hey, what if we just equip you with a stand for a little while? You wanna have like a ride along war ghost buddy of some
Sure.
sort?
Let's put an AI on a ship, and then I'll have someone talk to me throughout the entire game, telling me where to go and putting down waypoints.
Just have a friend who can provide a HUD.
Angler, do you know what an AI is?
The animating influence, yes.
Oh.
As it is called in some traditions.
Nice recovery.
So, like, hey, let's just go lay in some graveyards for a while and discuss. Let's negotiate. Let's invite some candidates.
All right,
do
let's go
interviews.
resume hunting.
What about Freddy?
Well, if Freddy's work is done, we can dismiss Freddy, and they'll be out there somewhere, back in the pit.
Do we dismiss Freddy?
Well, if if the task Freddy was summoned to do is completed, then off they'll go.
Is it?
If we
Oh,
say it
I
is.
Freddy?
Yeah?
Thank you for your service. You are released.
Freddy? This shape will miss dragon shapes.
Hey, we'll see you sometime down the road, buddy.
You have been of use, remain in fair temperament, and you may be of use again.
These shapes hope to return. And as it is clearly like stammering with emotions it has not had before, the shadows just kind of discorporate as it goes back to Malpheus.
I'm shocked you didn't try to eat us.
Oh, that's because we didn't surround him with light sources. That's usually the breaking
Wait, is
point,
the
which
trick
causes-
just not being a dick?
That is okay. As Yang gets it, wait a minute. Isn't one of the ultimate betrayals a betrayal of expectations? What is the ultimate prank if not actually just being straightforwardly loyal while everyone is waiting for the shoe to drop?
Yeah, that's a good prank.
He got you.
Yeah, no, fuck. I've
At
been
least
rused.
wants to be understood and perceived and expected, so staying vigilant around it makes it trustworthy, because what? You think that of me? No, I'm not that.
Yeah. As long as you are consistently making it be on its toes and in fulfilling the role it wants to fill, it has no reason to fuck you over.
Oh, Freddy's happy.
Freddy may or Freddy may or may not survive Malpheus and come back for another go.
If we have need of a Gygixa, we know who to call.
Alright. So, leaves the other 3 events, which, let me scroll back up and see which ones were. Okay, what one? Oh, what? Okay,
Surprise.
so not a bad one, I will say. There is probably a day or two of continuing to attend to the siege stuff and the ley lines as things are going on top side and bottom side. Before there is a very kind of strange moment for everyone with unseen senses and, all of the, ghostly detection stuff. There's a presence on the edge of the camp that very notably makes its presence known, but then stays back. Just kind of like a, hello, I'm here. I'm not going to intrude until you come speak with me.
This is a familiar presence.
Vaguely? You would have to roll a fortitude integrity check to recognize the kind of familiar.
My brain ticks for 2 ticks of the clock that it is. He goes, I know this. I get up and just walk over to the person.
Okay. The form resolves, and it's... Well, you are looking at a skeleton covered in teal fire. What's good?
Oh shit! Is this party boat?
Yeah!
I give him a high five.
Yeah, it kind of swings through your hand, but it still has a clap somehow. Yeah, man, you would not believe how long it took us to get here. There has been some hot bullshit going down below hands. Uh, first of all, how are you? We are allowed to be here, right? Like, this isn't like claimed land. We're not gonna get our skulls ripped off for intruding.
I won't.
All right, I
Oh,
know
well.
I know you're cool, but like Baldy over there, I know he's got a cartel. We kind of had a little bit of a, not a misunderstanding, but a little bit of bribing had to happen to get past them.
There is a faint rustle, and Moat is there, expecting, having heard the word bribe and learned that bribe means snack.
Ah! Okay.
I
Hey.
toss Moat a piece of jerky.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not one of the murder cats. Got it. So, now that I have established that I am not breaking even more laws to get here, first of all, hi. You might be wondering what the heck I'm doing inland. And honestly, I'm wondering the same thing myself. But a lot of weird stuff has been happening downriver past few months. You see, when you were coming back from the Isle, we saw your boat go by, and we just kind of let it be because, last time we got involved, things got a little interesting. Capital I. But so the crew and I were just going back to our usual kind of business, and then we jumped, a couple of trading vessels here and there. Just kind of spooked the guts off, got some tribute, got it back down to the underworld, and then we started hearing some really wacky rumors, like really uncomfortable rumors. And then, well, I won't even tell you the rumors because, like, it got proven pretty true pretty quick. So there was a boat. There was a really, just really bad. How do I put this? You know how your boat is cool, and our boat is like a little jetty boat. Really, like, your boat's got all sorts of fancy stuff that happens and all sorts of things like that. Imagine if your boat was mean. If your boat was like, if your boat was, if your boat was like angry as a river dragon and also dead and full of dead people. That was what was going on.
It's a boat that hates.
Yeah. Problem wasn't the boat. It was what was on the boat. I didn't really think I'd ever see a war strider again after I was dead, especially when I was at the bottom of the river. But turns out life has a lot of surprises for the dead people. There was a shipment going downriver, and there was a whole lot of, let's say, unpleasant and unwelcoming types on the boat. And they were escorting what looked like some sort of war strider downriver. And now, if I had to bet, some level of body parts or another that I could probably replace by, finding some interchangeable bit of hand or something, I'm gonna guess that was headed down to Thorns. Because it was flying some flags that looked awful familiar. So, I'm sitting there.
What did the War Strider look like?
Big old, tall, stompy boy. Just kind of looked like a standard old, kind of look shy and bit of power armor, only scaled way up.
So, human shaped?
Yeah.
Not turtle shaped.
I really don't like what this question's implying, boy. There's two of them. There's another one. We missed one.
Nods.
Man! There's a moment where the skeletal hand picks up the skull, pops it off the vertebra, and then throws it to the ground and stomps on it like a hat for a moment before putting it back on the head. I'm fine.
Look, somebody in the underworld is doing some real bullshit.
I'm fine.
Excuse me, not to intrude. Hi, my name's Milan.
Oh, were they... Mustache Lad. Yeah, I remember you.
Were they selling this boat on the water or below the water?
Can I
There's a
guess
moment to think.
below?
Kind of both. Like the mast was above the water, but the whole boat was below the water. It was kind of like sinking.
Milan is physically putting his head into his hands. They're sailing a war strider past Lookshy into realm waters.
Yeah. That's kind of the first thing we thought of was like y'all seemed like pretty cool people, and like the sort of people who would be able to handle this kind of bullshit. So we started going, and we got ourselves a dinky little boat. We knew it was going to be a while, and then some other shit happened. Behind us, what we didn't expect was there was another boat kind of like ours, another spectral boat coming up river. This time it wasn't bad though. It was there was this weird kind of greasy guy at the helm of it, and he was wait, hang on. This just stops and thinks for a second. No, it can't be the same guy. But we talked to the crew real quick, and they mentioned that they was going up north, up to the east. The intention was that they had heard through the scuttlebutt in the realm in Stygia, frankly. Yeah, that there was some shit going on. Like all of the big bosses that pretend they run the place starting to have arguments with each other about how to run things, kind of shit. Because apparently, the big boss man in Stygia heard what the mask was going to be doing. It involved robots, and he got mad. He got real mad. He didn't want any of that shit happening. So they wanted to get the hell out, and they just wanted to get anywhere but the Isle. So they, sorry, bit of a vocal fry. I need to take a break for a second to recharge the throat.
Oh no, I've been there. I've done that voice for our character as well.
So like, what it comes down to is there was a whole bunch of ghosts that kind of seemed to know you. Like, not directly. A couple of them seemed to know you directly, but like there was a whole bunch of people flying Catholic flags, a whole bunch of people flying some other flags. Said that they wanted to pay back some favors or something. Like you did them a solid on topside, maybe did their relatives a solid. I don't know. I wasn't paying too close attention. I was kind of still freaking the hell out about what was going on with the zombie boat. And so they offered to hitch us a ride, and it was that or a raft. So what I'm saying is you've got a boat downstairs that's got a whole bunch of people who are willing to give you backup, and we're along with the ride.
Huh.
Obsidian, I'm gonna go lie down. You got this. And Milan just sort of trundles off, trying to comprehend what just happened.
I want Obsidian wants to make a roll.
Everyone stand back. I'm going to roll dice.
I'm turning on a brain cell.
Okay, I'm gonna use a charm maybe outside of its normal.
Oh, I love
usage,
that kind of thing. Go on.
But I'm gonna do finesse war, so a thinky war roll.
Yep.
Modified by in our forebearers 4 steps.
All right, go on.
To try and figure out who was on that boat.
Yeah, go right ahead. That is absolutely in the territory of this charm, I will say.
Okay. So that's going to be a 8 to 10. She gotta be good.
So who would it be that would be flying a bunch of Catholic flags that would have responded to your actions on the Isle by feeling an obligation so intense that they would be going to the other side of the world to follow you and help you out. Your men are back.
I want you to know I'm like vibrating over here.
You made
Yeah.
a joke at the beginning of the session about finding all the 108 stars.
You avenged their memory. You killed the person who got them killed. You made the truth get known, and they're going to pay you back.
I think in reality, when he has the realization, Obsidian would actually be speechless. Like he just wouldn't know
How to,
how to process that. He would probably thank the skeleton for the message and just kind of have this look of he has to process something.
Yeah, like twice around Seiko would just kind of have a moment of feeling like pressing it, and then realize the 1,000-yard stare and be like, "Bad time. I'll just leave you. This is clearly something that you need some new time with. I'll go back and let them know that the message been delivered." And leaves you a kind of tattered bit of paper via manifestation of a way to get to the rivers that this boat is on via the Shadowlands nearby. Which you can immediately think, hey, I could get Onyx onto the rivers with this map.
There's not a lot more thoughts that's going
You
through
have
Obsidian's
unlocked
brain right now.
boat
Yeah.
access.
So yeah, there is the long waiting payoff of doing the Isle so well is you get your army back for the end of the game. Their loyalty was literally undying to you for standing up to them to the point of death.
Will not allow to go unremarked that oily looking, couldn't have been the same guy bit. Suppose having received surveillance cat sympathetic awareness of all of that report happening, Repose is going to go to Angler with a letter that is addressed to Cascade.
Mm-hmm.
A matter of advisement relating to certain affairs of your wife's predecessor. I had previously left on site my a suggestion that she retain ownership of at least one of the statues of the former prefect of the Jade Orchid. This is the follow-up to my intent of what should be done with said statue. Advisory, and the technical details are, of course, enclosed, that it will be installed in the corner of a public cemetery. The body of the statue will be allowed to be reclaimed and overgrown by ivy. An appropriate amount of surface space surrounding it will be set aside for any who feel so inclined to engrave any remarks, good or ill, that they would like to make regarding the man as he lived. But his likeness itself should be kept as it is, reclaimed by nature and returned to life through the cycle. And the plate on which his name is recorded, that should be kept clean. Let it be remembered that he was there. Repose just kind of internally, smugly accepting a mission accomplished of, hey, dying man, here's your last chance to leave a better legacy.
And it worked!
Here's a
Sinus
choice.
Lysaeus Ghost is coming back for revenge! Not against you, it seems like.
So you're about to die. This is an opportunity. Handing out pamphlets.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and confirm. Yeah, Sinus Lysaea's ghost. The way that Repose set that hole up, I was not. I had to follow through on that. So yeah, Lysaea's ghost is coming back to be part of the cavalry. Ujia Luigi is in fact back. All right. Any other reactions to this? I'm assuming that, um, unless prodded, that Obsidian would have a very long time of just no emotions, head empty, only positive. Ah,
Yes.
Welcome the arrival of skeleton warriors.
yeah. Just this is again. You made the joke earlier of the 108 stars tablet. That is what these roles are for. Is me bringing in all the support NPCs I have not addressed yet that are going to be involved in the finale, or bringing in
Also-
more directly the people who are involved and how dictating how they are going to be.
The mixed news that the other Strider is indeed someone else's problem now.
Yeah, yeah. So like, actually, give me a. For those who would be interested in thinking about the existence of the other Strider and what is going on from that report, go ahead and give me a either force or finesse plus bureaucracy roll.
Embassy?
Yes, at Embassy, the roll together.
Do I have an excellency for that? Hold on a moment. I do.
Proposes mine, firmly clicking into place around the responsible, sober thought of, is that my problem?
Yes. All right, so in escalating order from Milan's response to Reposes to Anglers. First of all, Milan, the mask has spent way too much time trying to be genteel and like, oh, I'm not a threat, I'm a fellow diplomat like you. I just did a little bit of conquering, so do you guys. What's the difference between you and I? Like, having such a blatant, like, doing it in a way that would be seen as blatant saber rattling doesn't seem like something he'd be doing. This is probably something he's trying to do quietly. And as for why it is being sent to him, you're not entirely sure. Repose, on the other hand, is perfectly sure why. This is a bribe to the mask from Tyrant. Tyrant has been working behind his back this entire time, subverting his plans, screwing around, ignoring him entirely. This is a buy-off of, here is an entire fucking War Strider, I quit. I no longer listen to you, you no longer actually have authority to me. In exchange, have a War Strider, and have a nice day.
I would like to interrogate the party crew guy to figure out where that was and how long ago that was, and if the realm would be able to send an interception force in by then.
Yeah, I can. We'll get back to that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah, Party Bun said they were headed towards Thorns, right?
Yeah, that would have involved going down past the river, and then turning south along the coast to get to Thorns.
Wait a minute, that means they're going right by Sparta.
Yeah, no, they'd be going straight past Lookshy and then skirting the coast down to Thorns.
Oh, that's gonna end so poorly for
The thing
them.
is, that is the first thing, is Milan knows there's no way in hell they would actually be shipping this thing in a way that would get Lookshy to notice it, because that would immediately start super hell war, and there's only one person that would have a boat full of skeletons transporting a War Strider. And for the masks, many things, he probably doesn't want to start a hot war with Lookshy without the War Strider in his pocket and a lot more preparation. Like, unless this is the catalyst for something that you don't know he's been planning for a long time, he's probably going to be a lot sneakier about Lookshy. But yeah,
the moment
so-
gets past Lookshy. Go ahead.
Yeah, Milan's contribution is okay. This is almost certainly him doing this on the down low to get this as an asset. Raposa's contribution is this is absolutely Tyrant buying off masks as this. You have no more interest in this region for now. This is my business. This is the Weaver's business. Fuck off. Here is your Lost Tech bribe to look the other way. Angler, thinking about it, would think about it a bit deeper and be like, okay, so it is a war strider that has been taken from Lookshy that is going to be going down the river past Lookshy to the mask. The Tyrant would be doing this as a bribe directly, and not like a double-edged one, because of that. If it went wrong, then that would just provoke the mask into doing something angry and backfiring on him. At the same time, what exactly does the mask need with a war strider, and why would it be transported above ground instead of in the underworld? Obviously the war strider is something that anybody would want in terms of, it is good to have the very powerful war machine if you are a militaristic leader of a nation. But why above ground? Why not through the underworld rivers? And then it hits you. Why would you take a route that has seemingly dangerous opposition on it if the other route was not more dangerous? It's not being transported through the underworld because there's other Death Lords it would be passing, and they just snipe it. They would just swipe the damn thing. They are trying to avoid Death Lords saber rattling at each other, mugging each other, and just piling on each other for this thing because it's open season for a War Strider. And for most Death Lords, just a single one War Strider, big fucking deal. The Mask is noteworthy for having like one or two, and then Juggernaut, which is its own like kind of trump card. But for a lot of Death Lords, literally just the goddamn one would be a tipping point of their regional machinations. So they're transporting it in the Land of the Living because, by everybody else's estimations, the Land of the Living is not shit compared to the politics of taking this through the Land of the Dead.
Okay.
So the actionable information you would get out of that is twofold. One, if/when other people figure out about this boat's going to have a lot of problems. This boat is going to get mobbed by all sorts of people who want this robot. Number two, the rest of the Death Lords are probably going to be extremely distracted for a while by this. And that is honestly the probable true intention of Tyrant, is not just bribing off Mask, is diverting the attention of literally everyone in the direction away from him. Because Heaven also is going to be able to see it when it's topside.
That's bait.
It's bait. If you threw anything at that boat, there is going to be a trap on that boat that is going to spring. Why would you make it stealthy, but still obvious enough that it is obvious that you were being stealthy in a way that everyone except the Death Lords can see it? Because you want them to bite the hook and not, say, pay attention to someone else who is currently on the run.
So do we help them bait the trap or ward people away from it?
My thought is contacting the realm, Waves wouldn't ask, and get them to be aware of this bait and look for whatever it's the distraction for.
The distraction might be over by us. In fact, it might be don't. However, it could also be on throughout the island. So you're right, we should possibly contact some people.
In which case I would like to use a lot of my resources and the mask to get in contact with my family to put the word out of, okay, here's what's going on. A war strider is being transported by a Death Lord up here because it's meant to be a bait.
Yeah, you are going to see a spooky boat. Do not actually bite the spooky boat.
Yes.
Okay. The optimal response to this is difficulty 10. Below that will still get you results, but not the full suite of them. So this is going to be this is a full force bureaucracy because you are trying to like grab the realm by the throat in the middle of pre-Civil War tension and make them do something cohesive. Force embassy role. Put everything you can into this.
All right. Do we want to engage in some collaboration here and make sure that everything about this is slammed into the caps?
Yeah.
Yes. So my first thought is anywhere between my influence of Minister of the Realm and my grandma. So that would at least give me 3 dice.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, an excellency would give me a roll of 18.
Yep. So that is you need 2 extra dice to get the dice cap, and then successes from somewhere if you can get that.
Considering I'm well versed in the bureaucracy of the realm, could I write up like exactly what to say in order to pass the information along so people will read it rather than just going and throwing it in the to-do pile?
I'd say Milan knows how to do that. However, your history as naval military police would be exactly what is necessary to cut through the bureaucracy to the naval powers and be like, no, really, shut the fuck up and listen. So I will let you do it through that angle.
Okay. Bureaucracy, whatever. Have an extra 8 successes. Or dice.
8 dice, which you are now at the 20 dice pool cap.
Thinking, is there any? I need to do a bit of Exalted research because there are some things about the setting I forgot. Who is
yeah.
House Punch the Undead? Punch
Lidal.
and
That is
Lidal.
Shireen's house.
And that is also my dad's house.
Yeah, that is your father's house.
Hey, I want to send a message to my dad.
All right. I'll give you a stun for that converts the 2 dice into 1 success.
Okay, so that's 20 dice and 1 auto success.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, if Angler gave me so dice, I don't need to use an excellency. Instead, I
Yeah.
could use a charm.
Yeah, if you can use another charm.
Apologies for the dead air.
No, it's all good.
Kind of wish I ordered my charms in a useful manner. Where is it? I just saw it. Okay, I want to use. I have this idea for using bureau breaking method to target the general workings of the realm bureaucracy that just kind of the corruption and the let's
Yeah.
just push stuff aside, specifically breaking it so that no, this needs to get heard. So it's a force embassy role. Success introduces obstacles to a bureaucratic venture someone else is doing. So
Yeah, I'll count that as just punching through the usual
Yeah.
petty schemes and bureaucracies that would distract from
Supposing
this.
the existence of some kind of active thing in motion that would lead to stepping on the landmine.
Yes.
Milan is going to roll dice to punch the Civil War in the face. Okay, that's 10 successes to punch the Civil War in the face to say, no, hey, I have a message.
All right, so like I said,
Not today.
your bar for actually getting full success was 10, and you hit 10, so let me narrate how this goes. You put on the mask and send the sorceress messages and just start bombarding every department you can, starting with your father, and then going to your grandmother, and then going to the head of House Ladal, and then the head of House Pelops. You know, the house that hates you, like, personally, and also your family. As a deliberate flex of, I am being bold enough to send you a personal letter with my name and occult tracing on it, because I find it important enough to tell you this. As you go into meticulous detail about all of these sensitive topics, and basically go exhaustively to everyone. Look, and it is probably not this direct, but probably has the interpretation from everyone else of, you could go ahead and kill each other next week. Right now, bigger problem.
Right now, the underworld is making a deliberate move.
Yeah, everyone remembers the last time they ignored Thorns and what happened when they ignored Thorns. And now someone is saying, hey, Thorns is up to shit again. However, don't do it this way. So, you get a couple of responses back through your open communications, and a lot of it you kind of just have to trust. Like, it is a very uncomfortable gritted teeth, like, they're probably not going to send sorcerer's messages back beyond a receipt of message, and I'm gonna have to just trust how this goes. But from speaking to your father, from speaking to your grandmother, the general gist that you get is that no matter what people think of the Civil War, even the possible fears of the fleets of Venif and Paleps backstabbing each other during whatever naval maneuver this would involve. Number one, this is coming from somebody who has a track record of not just one, but multiple anathema killed personally with their hearth. Two, this is, again, coming from somebody who has no actual political motivations on the Isle itself beyond keeping things running. And after Parliament, like, there was a lot of digging to find any sort of ulterior motive, and Milan just doesn't have any. Milan's just genuinely here to be a bureaucrat that keeps things running and helps things improve for people. Like, the most that you could leverage against Milan is that Milan cares about not nobility. And sure, that's going to make some people mad, but that is a politics thing and not an existential threat thing.
3, hey, there's that rumor going around that the sun looked at Milan. That's weird. That's a weird rumor. That can't be real.
What,
God,
the
yeah,
Rhodes
I
guy?
don't think that has gotten out here yet, or because, like,
I did, in fact, tell Grandma about that.
she would not have told anyone, because number one, no one is going to believe that. Number two, if they did believe that, that's a lot of really fucking uncomfortable questions.
Yep.
Well, like the highway guy, though?
Like, the bullshit, though. Not that guy. Like, are you telling me that he became a solar after being a dragon? That doesn't work. That never happens. What do you mean he got looked at and he wasn't a solar? That's even stupider. Come on.
Big
Like,
news,
she just
everyone.
preemptively is not saying anything, because, like, no, that's not. No one. That is not something you tell people. Maybe way later when people are more willing to accept that kind of thing in hindsight, but
Yeah.
not right now.
Yeah.
So the gist that you get is that you can trust the Isle. It has been simmering further since you left, as inevitably it would. It seems that the overtures that you and Repose helped set up between houses Mnemen and Vanif haven't done like fantastically, but they have cooled off the escalation of the hostilities. They've kind of made it settle down at neutral. And that is enough of a setup that there wasn't enough further escalation between the houses that this message is received well of like, okay, look, Empress is gone. I know. We're all posturing to be who's Empress. We know that there's all sorts of questions over who has the authority to do what. Right now, we need to improvise or we get Thorns 2, the revenge. And so that much is coming through clearly, that there is just enough realization of like, okay, there is a mutual threat outside. We can move a little of our legions to watch this and investigate without having the houses immediately backstab each other, because we know concretely that if we show our necks, that there is a Death Lord actively doing something right across the strait, and we can't have that happen. Like, you have sufficiently communicated the level of both subterfuge and danger involved in this maneuver that even if it is temporary, and even if it is going to be probably involving some level of poking at each other and figuring out vulnerabilities for later, you can turn your back on the realm and genuinely trust it's not going to explode into the civil war while they deal with this. Like, as long as this is a problem, they're going to stay cohesive.
There is a bigger issue than who's wearing the hat right now.
Yeah, and that is the scale of the problems that the realm is facing, is that your 10 success embassy roll with everything thrown behind it is you have temporarily stalled the civil war because everyone realizes, okay, this is a problem.
Oh, hang on, I forgot to roll Ango's dice.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Well, shit.
Whoops!
Okay, how to amend that?
And furthermore,
And also, the Civil War was stopped. The end.
I'm trying to remember, because I went on my whole spiel, because I had a very quick thought of what would happen if you got over 10. I'm trying to remember. Okay, with that, I can say that I'm actually looking at my time, like I have in my notes the timeline of the tensions that lead to the Civil War without player interactions, and seeing which ones I can cut the thread on.
I keep pressing the button.
Look, all of you do, and this game would not be nearly as entertaining for anyone, myself, the audience, or yourselves, if you did not just keep doing shit.
And then Milan became emperor.
Wait, what?
Can't lie. That's what the dice say.
All right. With 5 extra successes, I'm going to rule that you get a message back from your grandmother about a couple of days later, and it is very short, and it is very kind of like, this situation is ongoing and we're still trying to figure out what the hell's going on. There is on the Isle the Isle is the center of the Immaculate Faith, and it's not a papal equivalent so much as it is kind of a combination Dalai Lama / chief scholar of the Mouth of Peace is their name. And the Mouth of Peace is kept pretty quiet during the missing period of the Empress, because everyone knows if the Immaculate Order makes an overt stance on everything, that is going to be a chain of dominoes because of the sheer power of faith over the lay people of the Isle. And the Mouth of Peace has made an announcement, actually, shortly after you sent out your messages, endorsing specifically the houses working together, not as a military action against Thorns, but to protect the Isle from threats within and without. And it is very clear from the way that it is phrased, and the fact that all houses were mentioned in the speech, but none were given particular favor. The mouth of peace is basically walking out and saying directly, if any of you start the Civil War, the first person to throw the punch is the one that I'm saying go get him. Something has moved the religious order to basically say, all of you shut the fuck up. If any of you are dumb enough to throw a punch right now, you're the ones who I'm going to point at and tell the peasants to murder. So you have bought a non-zero considerable amount of time by having the Immaculate Faith's official position be nobody fucking move.
Wow, this is actually probably going to change Milan's intimacy towards the Immaculate Faith. Because in the past, Milan's not had a good opinion of them, but
For a lot of justifiable reasons. But yeah, basically they had the head of the clergy be like, if any of you are dumb enough to start the Civil War when there is an existential threat right across the way that has a 100-meter tall juggernaut called Juggernaut, and it is getting a war strider and is making expansionist overtones, I swear to God, I will personally help the peasants burn you all. Nobody be that stupid. Do not test me.
huh. I kind of want to get to know this guy now on a personal
Are all
level.
of you really in the process of ignoring the ever-increasing pillar of skeletons?
Yeah. I don't remember. I'd have to look in the book. I think the current mouth of the piece is she, her, but I'd have to double check on that.
Kind of want to, without titles or anything, get to know her now. Huh.
All right. So, let us see. Which of
That
the-
was 50% of the dice you have rolled, Darren.
Hmm?
That was 50%. That was half of the 4 things. So
Spin the
Yeah,
event
I'm just
wheel.
seeing which
Yep.
of the next two is happening next.
yep.
All right, and that will be support. Okay. This is probably not actually all that long after the skeleton shows up. Is
Understood. Obsidian is still not in this scene.
yeah, yeah, this is while Obsidian is still probably rebooting Brain, unless this scene provokes any other non-rebooting things. There is a hustle and bustle of a lot of people from the militias of the local areas coming by to basically set up a perimeter around the area. Like, there are people from Clay Bottom, there's a couple of people from Riftwood, a lot of people from Fallen River Valley, a little bit from Jade Orchid, although most of them are staying back because of previous things. Like, just general smatterings of the alliance that has been established, sending in their promised military, logistical, supply chain, etc. supports. And as part of that influx, there are 3 faces that you recognize among the group. Or no, those 2 would show up next. The 3 faces you recognize are, as part of the wagon train and the giant supply train of people coming by, is Sybil and Guan, not calling too much attention to themselves aside from just, we are here as part of the transit of goods. And Flowing River is actually among the detachment from Fallen River Valley and comes and seeks you out quietly.
Heh.
Just kind of slips up beside whoever would be available to speak, preferably Repose, but whoever else would be willing to take point on that. Angler.
Sure, but I mean, if Repose is open,
Yeah, it's just I'm noticing there's several people muted.
Yes, hello.
Oh, so
Okay.
Oomst.
Yeah. Flowing River has showed up with the basically the supply of logistical supplies and food and entrenchment and militia to help guard the area and etc. has arrived. And of the major NPCs to show up, Sybil and Guan are a part of the logistical supply movement effort, and Flowing River has also shown up trying to seek an audience with the Hearth. And was going to try to talk to Repose first, if possible.
All right.
So Flowing River quietly, while all of the hustle and bustle is going on, just kind of slips into the center of the camp and the entrenchments and just gives a look over to the foundation of the very bad Grover Mance and just reflexively cannot hide, just like the. But looks back over to Repose and bows the head. Hope all has been going well over here for you.
As well as can be said. How is my oldest nephew?
Well, the best guess that we have is that the Executor is still somewhere within the direction, and that is honestly all we can narrow it down to. We would not be surprised if he's still in the region, but he has gone very thoroughly to ground. From the sounds of things, you've already gotten the report of the movements downriver. That is... The Central Convocation is kind of losing its mind over that right now and to how to deal with that. I am quite glad, for once in a long time, that I am on special assignment and I don't need to go back for those meetings, as they sound like they are digging up old wounds.
Yes, Milan was writing something to someone on that subject. I suspect several people are scribing.
Yeah, the last I heard is that, he just pauses and checks himself. A very influential figure has been moved to do something unusual from the scope of this threat. To tap some influences that he doesn't usually do. But back to our local issues, and honestly, more pressing than the ones over there, in my opinion. How's it been going over here? What have we got on the most recent intelligence? You could just summarize if necessary.
That we've one warlord of the dead, entrenched in a necromantically conjured fortress situated in the underworld. General breakdown of forces around him. The other Strider, which he was able to procure, has been worked on and put into a capable state. Though one which, to our best estimates, limits its use to within the boundaries of the underworld.
Exhausted sigh of relief at that. That takes a lot of the worst case scenarios off the book.
We have considered many potential vulnerabilities that we'll be able to exploit in approaching it.
Look,
The
there
main
is
question which remains open to us is what in detail the Weaver expects to achieve from his time here. We know what the Tyrant claimed that he would do, and we know how your associate intended to make use of that situation.
And yet the Death Lord remains a cipher.
In the experience of my family, in our opposition to him, among his peers, he would be one of the last we think would attempt to batter down the gates of Yushan and storm the mountain. He is more interested in what lies below. What could be made to lie below.
And that brings me to part of why I'm here, is I did have the opportunity after the resolution of the executor problem to be briefly called back up for a debriefing and a reassignment back to the region and assistance with you. And I took my brief time there to take some liberties with the pauses again. Those who work under Jupiter maintain exquisitely detailed records of varying levels of access, and
One would hope.
he just kind of glances upwards to make sure there are enough clouds above him before he says, "In the interest of creation, I may have taken a few liberties on terms of access and filed paperwork.
Raising of eyes. Capital S secrets.
I have the feeling that it is, considering the regions that I accessed and the way I managed to do so, and the restraint with which I did so. It will likely be fines at best, maybe some punitive service in the bureaucracy's internal affairs at worst, but I consider it worth it with what I found." He rubs his face and just kind of gestures over to a tent. This is... I would prefer to not be under open sky to discuss this further. Just kind of slips in with repose as Moat hops up on a table, watching quietly. So Invictus's acknowledgement of your family has caused consternation among a lot of the imperial courts of the heavens. Whether or not this is going to lead to actual official changes of policy downwards, or if it is going to be a continued status quo with backdoor legal access when you know the actual precedents that have been set, I would bet on the latter, frankly, but we don't know, as Sol has yet to emerge from his domain and make any further clarifying statements on what he did. The more important thing is that in the confusion, I had the justification I needed to unseal old records about the First Age. Specifically about the mortal identities of the suspected Death Lords. I was able to find some records, not a lot, but some, about the living life of the entity now known as the Weaver upon the Loom of Flesh. Whatever it is that the Neverborn Pacts entailed with them at the fall of the First Age, they were thorough enough to scratch information from even Jupiter's records, so I apologize for the piecemeal nature of this, but I think I might know what's going on with his plan here. It is already a matter of record in your family that it is his overriding drive currently to find a way to undermine, adapt, pervert, whatever word you want to call it, the fifth and final element of the cycle that he has not been able to subvert to his personal tastes in the underworld. The elements, all five of them, have their own echoes in the underworld, myriad expressions, whether blood or acid or bile. Water has many fluids in the underworld that can claim to be the underworld reflection of them. And he has grown content with claiming 4 of these as the ones that he claimed would be ideal as the reflections in the underworld. He has yet to find anything that has satisfied him in the nature of wood. And upon looking at his past life, I think I understand why. He was a sorcerer in life, not just after death. He was always obsessed with the elemental cycles, and particularly with how the cycle fed itself and how it perpetuated and how it balanced itself and how it would come back to equilibrium after being knocked out of balance, and how you could imbalance it to create specific states, and how you could maintain it in an unbalanced state without external reinforcements by setting things up. He was, by all accounts, one of the most surpassingly skilled geomancers of the solar delivery. And unfortunately, that skill did not seem to leave him very much in death. It merely was tested to another end, and given many, many, many years to find out the new set of rules in the world that should never have been. Upon examination of speeches within the deliberative that he gave, of his efforts in colonizing the outer reaches of the wild and expanding the boundaries of creation and the experiments that he did, he had, well, he was not unique among the Solars in having an ambition, an obsession. And his own obsession was to improve upon Gaia's design. And he actually takes a step back to let that emotionally process. It was of his opinion that of the elemental cycle, each of the elements had fundamental, in his eyes, weaknesses, flaws, things that could have been improved with a second pass, in his eyes, the way that he described them, to work the way that he thought it should. Which makes sense that upon reaching the underworld, he would be faced with the ultimate blank slate, a absence of any defined, intended rules by any of the primordials, to dally as he sees fit in both the elements above and create and define the elements below and seek to become a god that way, or surpass the gods, even. And yet it was the cycle of life and death that ever eluded him in the underworld, as should be plainly obvious that the underworld would have the most difficulty incorporating Gaia's designs for the elements of wood in its broken world. His ultimate end goal was to change the land, to change the people. It was, in his view, folly that other Solars pursued to try and reach into the essence of the living being and tweak it and expect it to propagate outward and uplift humanity or change them or create any number of the adapted folk that you might see in the deep sands or the far woods. For his telling, this would be the tamperings of the Solars and of the unconquered sun by remove. And yes, this was without power, and this was power without peer. Except they would all be playing in Gaia's design. They would be in the environment of a primordial, in arguably the body of a primordial. And it was his foremost and fervent belief that there was no lasting change one could make to mankind, to any life, to anything, without changing Gaia's design first. The idea of the Selenian working, of the sorceress workings, of all the grand designs of the Solars, he saw as pointless, masturbatory exercises in self-indulgence and, well, I say this thinking myself of his own plans, very similar things, but he made a very compelling argument in one sense. That if you wanted true power, if you wanted to truly control the face of creation, the direction of creation, to control the deliberative, to control all things that lived, died, and existed upon it, you needed to change Gaia. You needed to change the elements. You needed to change the dragons, the lines, the elements themselves, the flow. Starting at the bottom and going all the way up would inevitably have all of what you've built ground into dust before you ever reached the top. So he took the path of geomancy to try to force the world to follow his grander design. Which leads me to my conclusion of what he's doing in the underworld. He wants to control the underworld. He doesn't want to unmake the world. That much is clear for all of us. But I don't think he's ever abandoned his ideas about Gaia, about the elements, about geomancy, about terraforming, to bending it to his will. All of what he's doing, all of the elemental warping that he has done, is to twist it into a reflection that still has a connection to the elements of creation. Think about it. Your powers as the blood of the dragons can still affect his elementals. There are still the seeds of the primordial essence within them that have been changed. The rules have been twisted. He succeeded at taking tiniest slivers of Gaia's body and changing them and perpetuating them and propagating them. And the issue that he's had is that the element of wood in and of itself is a defense mechanism against that. Wood itself is Gaia's regulation. It's dynamism. It's change. Its death becomes life becomes death. It's iteration. It's evolution. It's change. All of the other elements rely on the dynamism of wood. Just as wood relies on water to feed it, on fire to clear it out, on the earth to nurture it, on the air to spread it. All of the elements rely upon each other. And what all of the other elements rely upon wood for is change. Is correction. Earth stabilizes the wild. Wood puts life over the nothingness that the earth stabilizes. I'm afraid that he might be coming close to realizing a way of finishing his cycle. The secrets that I unsealed indicated that he has actually made success on a prototype. He has not gotten it to perpetuate, but he has made success with an idea. The element of wood innately will regulate itself. It will boom, it will bust, it will grow, it will die, it will flourish, it will decay. It will continue forward in that cycle forever. That is its nature. It is not any one part of the cycle. It is the cycle. And he has tried over and over to snip out pieces after pieces of the cycle and have them animate and have them be anything connected to Gaia. And so many of them have failed over and over and over. But now he has an idea. He has disconnected the ability of life to reclaim vitality from death. He has created life forms that give nothing back. He's created things that absorb essence, and when they die, and when they cease, and when they are nothing but inanimate meat, or just nothing, nothing can get the energy back out. He's created sinks. Creatures that cannot be broken down. And if he succeeds at this, if he finds a way to produce them en masse, if he finds a way for them to perpetuate, of twisting life into the things that they have become, all he has to do is release them to the surface of creation, and it collapses down. Because it sucks out all of the essence and it makes it indistinguishable from a dead zone. It will be all a Shadowland. It will all be run by his design for the elements. I don't know how much time he has until he's finished with that. But that's what he wants. That's what he's using Tyrant for. That is where all of this energy is going. That is what all of this is being built up towards, is to make another prototype. He doesn't care about heaven. He doesn't care about Tyrant's plan. He doesn't care about the Executor. All he wants is for people to do his dirty work, to provide him his resources, to do this experiment. And if he's successful, there might be a Shadowland the size of 100 kingdoms by the next calibration. If not larger. It might not even be able to be stopped.
That sounds bad.
It's real bad, my dude.
See, now, that sounds like a proper doom. 20 people day to day, corners of streets, fringes of gatherings will decry this or that as being the unmaking of the world. The most dire, unthinkably profane sign of decline, unwinding, of shattering of an age.
Flowing
This,
River is just
though.
exhausted shrug and sigh at that. Of just like, yeah.
Which the sound here from Repose is that over the whole course of this, just taking all of this in, Repose has internally been shifting to war footing.
Yep.
There is now the grim satisfaction of impending
Absolute full sports mode.
cataclysmic struggle. There's just no room for argument about this. I can feel entirely just in picking up the spear.
Put down shield. Put down crown. Put down horn. Pick up spear. Pick up 3 other spears.
This is the sort of thing that you and I are for.
He nods wearily.
So, let us be to work then. The hunt is on.
There is... He exhaustedly sighs. I can't go with you. I don't even have your combat prowess. It's not what I do. But I do have one idea. And it's gonna get me in a lot of paperwork. but I do have an idea. But I need to know, is there an elemental that you trust absolutely with any power you give them in this area?
That's a loaded fucking question.
Elementals who we know in this land.
There is mud. There is tree.
There's a
There-
nail.
There's
nail?
There is
Nail is a god, not an
Nail's
elemental.
god.
There is the spirit of
dampness.
dampness.
There's Dampness, there's Clay Boss, there's the Wood Elemental in the Grove.
There's
a couple-
the spirit of dampness.
There is the spirit of dampness.
You keep bringing up other elementals.
Take
I
the spirit of
know,
dampness is
I know.
right there.
So, how would you bring that up to him in character?
I'm not in this scene.
Yeah.
Well, there is one point of custom in these lands that for all the differences between each of us, we all find some general agreement on. One who goes by names, by many names, in many places, wears many guises, takes many forms, but we do at least all agree upon the day that should be seen as his, the spirit in which it should be taken.
There is a very slow change on the facial expression of, are you serious? Number one, am I right, and are you serious?
If you are asking me, in as many words, who I would most trust to intervene, when someone will step up and turn the tides, their highest point.
Hand
Who do you
slowly
think I will
running
name?
down face. I suppose that would work. Alright, so here is the idea. I, through technicalities of the celestial bureaucracy and its interactions with the terrestrial bureaucracy, have invested in me the power to deputize any terrestrial court entity to act within the interests of the celestial courts. In addition to that, I also have within my purview the to my discretion oversight ability to promote celestial court entities for their services or in recognition of their deeds. Theoretically speaking, if I combine these two, I could deputize Sand and Clouds, and then I could make Sand and Clouds an elemental dragon. And with an elemental dragon, we could have direct hands-on control of the flow of the ley lines into the underworld in a way that no other living entity in heaven or earth could manage. We would have unparalleled finesse over our ability to manipulate the flow of essence that the Weaver is using. The catch is, number one, as you are aware, elementals can become exaggerated in their personalities and somewhat unstable when given the power to ascend to become an elemental dragon. And on my side, secondarily, creating an unauthorized elemental dragon with no notice or paperwork is absolutely going to cause me problems. Problems that I am willing to bear with a smile, if this would be helpful for you.
Posey's kind of focused in. There's a lot of just very visible that, like, the weight of the earth in him is restraining a lot of, why, yes, I can see many ways that this will cause problems for my enemy. You are in front of me reluctantly offering a Godzilla for the cause. Do go on.
What's that you say? A actually controllable, aimable, small-scale kukla? Don't mind if I do!
So you're saying we can turn the spirit of giving and joy and turn him into a dragon?
That
Of
is,
giving
that
and
is
joy.
what I am saying.
Of tidal
yes.
waves.
Kill each other, but it's religious.
Yes, I do want to turn Santa Claus into an elemental dragon.
Give Santa a gun.
Promotions.
So the funny thing is, this wouldn't make him innately a force of destruction. It just means that all that he is way more amped up, which means
Much
that
louder.
basically Dampmas as a festival is going from a Eastern 100 Kingdoms thing to probably the entire East and maybe parts of the North and South.
We could
minimum.
inundate the entire direction with Christmas joy.
Also maybe literal tidal waves.
Of
Oh,
festivity.
we're in the direction that's opposite of water.
A monsoon of tidings.
The
Oh,
tides of comfort and joy.
The trees are not going to be happy. Wait,
That's
does
a water
the trees are
aspect.
gonna
I'm
be
not
great.
sure I agree with
No,
this.
water nurtures. Yeah, no. Directionally, it's the
Wood
opposite.
loves this.
Wood
loves
would adore this. This is water nurtures wood. This would
right?
be
It's the people who are next to each other that hate each
The
other.
forest was getting a little boring anyways. Yeah, now this would really shake things up.
yeah.
We're
If anything,
turning
the wood
these-
elementals are going to be upset because now they have a billion competitors, or they're having to deal with a shitload of water elementals where there weren't any before.
So they jazzed it up.
Finally
Also, yeah,
jazzed
as
it up.
the chat notes, this would be the second time that Dampmas has been subverted into being a militaristic thing.
The war of dampness.
I was
We
just
have
thinking
ascended
that,
beyond the war on Christmas. Now Christmas is war.
ID tagged presents.
Also, yeah, as noted and as kind of being alluded to by the sidereal, the local established politically entrenched elemental dragons are going to be like, where the fuck did that come from? Why weren't we consulted?
New pier? New
yeah.
pier. Climate?
They'll live with it.
Well, I'm in.
Yeah, like this is
While you are asking-
not a small regional change. This is like most of the East is now going to have a
So-
paradigm shift in its divine pecking order because there is a new head of the elemental side of it. Like this
Well,
is
see what-
Flowing River going, I'm not a combatant, but I can pull out the most ridiculous thing that I can do in this situation because I have realized that this is literally a threat to creation.
So, to progress the idea here,
Mm-hmm.
while you are asking only me, I would tell you, on behalf of those who came before me, that the questions of what else could happen are questions for the day after you have survived whatever has fallen upon you, and that first you must survive, or there is no question of what will come tomorrow. If you would
You're gonna have
present
to-
me with the choice between releasing all that you have to do what you must today, or withholding and risking that there is no day after, then I have only one answer for you. But today you must ask more than me. I am but one voice.
Well, if nothing else, you've given me the words I need for Jack. Although I still don't know if this is a better to ask apologies later than ask permission ahead of time situation. Well, one way or another, you'll know if it goes through. Trust me, you'll know. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lot of work to do.
I figure, like, detail-wise, then, yeah, there's
Mhm.
going to be presenting this plan to the others, and we'll arrange some sort of sign to give our final verdict on whether or not we invite this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the team can, yes or no, to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
Carol of Bells intensifies. Well, that was something. Who wants a local dragon? We are also looking to build a local pantheon to fill the power vacuum around our very remote and obscure province. So hey, who wants a dragon? Who wants a space judge who can make official rulings with a hammer?
But there's already a sensor in this direction. Well, that sounds like a them problem. And not all dragons have to be sensors.
But they can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to make AI give to a war effort, but I do like that we are making several very good decisions in a row.
I mean, you're the one who came. Like, well, no, Doc was the one who came specifically with sand and clouds, but you contributed heavily to dampness, so you did a long con contribution to this. And also, again, you're the wood elemental. You're going to be a keystone of a lot of the Weaver's plans going badly.
We're gonna give you a Gundam.
I want a Gundam.
You're
gonna
just going to get in the
sneak you into a
Gundam
Gundam.
and just shit on his whole deal.
Well, you have one more bullet point on your event
Yes.
list.
And this one is thankfully pretty short because I got mentioned earlier that we need to end a little earlier than usual today. So visit, yes. Okay, so this would be a few days after, so probably enough time for Obsidian to, factory reset brain.
Okay.
1 sec. But yeah, this is a just very quick thing of, let's see, I've had basically everybody who would be directly contributing on the ground visit except, and this is again one of those situations where if you have an NPC that you're curious as to what they're contributing or where they would show up, remind me either now or next week or whenever, because this is the last rundown. But as the camp has been set up and everything is getting set up and Grover Mance's skeleton continues to get more haunted, and curiously enough, it keeps kind of changing itself slightly when you're not actually paying attention to it or working on it. Like, you come back and it sucks more, but you didn't do it. Like, it just kind of shifted itself. And normally Mance's kind of self-correct into a more comfortable state, but you have set this is actually, for Repose, a finesse occult roll with a stunt.
Roll the old excellency in there. A lot of very ominous, slowly walking around the build site, occasionally just brushing a fingertip along a wall, tapping a post.
So you may recall, back when you first had this idea, that I laughed pretty hard to myself. I said, I'm rolling for something and I'm not going to tell you what yet, and it got a high number of dice.
Yes.
You think that you sympathetically set up a connection between your skeletal manse and the Void Fortress.
Huh.
You're not sure exactly how it works back and forth, but you have some sort of connection you can use to the fortress in this. Like, you set up, I'm going to make a shitty manse that ruins all the geomancy right here, and the immensely powerful necromantic fortress made to do the exact same thing in the underworld was like, oh, same hat? Same hat!
Alright, so immediate thoughts on applications we could put this toward. Opening some kind of portal for either getting in or getting out. Or engaging, or possibly also, and engaging in divination to find out more about the layout of the fort before we actually go down there. Just scatter construction viscera on the floor and see what holes demand to be called forth from the ground.
Just fucking go get a contractor to do haruspicy for you.
I'm just going to throw some carpenter nails onto the floor and see what shape it makes.
They all fall into the exact shape of a middle finger being raised from a fist. Anyway, so the actual visit that you get in this time period is Koi and a Bismuth are both coming down. Koi comes down, kind of hobbling through the crowd, just hopping on her walking stick, kind of bashes one person in the back of the head when he doesn't get out of the way, just hooting and hollering, immediately getting about to, like, seeing the things that you have all been doing to set up the geomancy, and just very kind of raucously, like, no, 5 feet to the left. I said 5 feet to the left, pick it up! It just kind of immediately has shown up and is taking charge, and is, like, has seen what you are trying to do, and is like, no, I help, I fix. And so is just kind of, unless you engage in dialogue and have questions or comments with her, she is here to help the geomantic side of things while you are gone keep going well. That is going to be her role in the grand ensemble of people helping. Is somebody needs to stay topside and make sure that the sabotage doesn't go fucky. Meanwhile,
I thought of something I want to do with Yang when you're done.
Sure, go on.
We still have that frame of the War Strider, right?
The frame?
The practice.
Yeah,
the
the
danger
practice.
room.
Oh, yes.
Practice one made of rust.
Can I just have Yang trained to pilot Gundams and ask the Nail, like, hey, what the fuck are these things anyways?
Oh yeah, you could have Shea-Khan just teach you the basics of piloting a War Strider, absolutely.
Yeah, just have a montage of me becoming Amuro.
Yeah, no, that's like in the week-ish or so of this preparation period, Yang just goes up to the Nail, gets in it, has Shea-Khan build an entire dummy War Strider and pilot it as though it was actually functional, and basically just teach you the basic methods of, okay, so this is what happens when you get into the cockpit and you are really confused. This is how you do it. So now, if this was 3rd edition, you would have a free specialty now, but now you narratively, I am not going to give you penalties for not knowing how a War Strider works, because now you have gone through a training montage of, hey, I realized I don't know how this works. I'm going to go to the expert on War Striders and ask him how do I actually pilot a car.
Help computer.
Mm-hmm. So the second person to show up, Bismuth, does not need to get people out of the way. It is very much he has the presence where when he wants it, the crowd just kind of parts a couple of feet and then closes back behind him. The aura of he big, he moving, don't be in way. He walks up and just kind of bows his head to the hearth and obsidian and raises it. I got enough of our briefing from our friend from above while he was running around doing business to hear the stakes of the matter. I'm here to make up for what I've done.
Okay. We could use the help.
For me, because I'm kind of zoning in and out. This is Bear.
Yeah, this is Bear.
Okay.
With any luck, I'll be able to tell you some intel on how Tyrant works once we get inside and I recognize any of his old habits. And beyond that, I can certainly carve a way through for you, or make a distraction. It's not the first time I've had to deal with ghosts.
Well, let's get you up to speed on what we know. And present the diagram of the defenses we know about.
Skims through, eyes immediately lock on Hecaton Kyre. Okay, what do you know? How taps on that? Whoa. Is that loose?
It seems to be placated. It's not
Sedated?
actively destroying the tower.
Is out and about, doesn't seem to be on anybody's side, but you know, it's there, and it is a problem.
Well.
Rendered neutral for now.
Alright, then he immediately just starts shifting mindset into one you really haven't seen from him before. The defensive and the offensive movement forward mindset of, hey, this is a guy who has spent a very long time fighting enemies of creation. Mostly in guerrilla warfare, but also in just stand-up one-man army style, but also has spent a very long time defending communities. So he's immediately starting to give advice on how to keep the upper side of this operation safe, no matter what happens. Like, wherever anything comes from, he'd be like, yeah, no, if they come from this direction, we can use this landmark, etc. But also is starting to talk about the underworld, and is like, alright, we'll have scouts keep an eye on the Hecaton Kyre, we'll move through this way. And he's just completely has shifted, and you can see there is not a single weight on his shoulders. He has just completely gone into business mode of like, this is what I should have been doing all along. I should have been here, I should have been helping, I should... And not even should, you can tell at this point. It is the situation where now the breath can be taken in, and it's like, this is what I'm doing. This is correct.
He wants to be here.
Yes. And, while he's talking, it is also clear that he has pulled a couple of his own strings to make sure the forest communities are going to be very well guarded by the local gods and elementals while he is gone, and that there is the expectation if there is so much as a feather or hair or scale out of place on any of them when he comes back, they are all going to be torn into chew toys. But yeah, that is the supporting cast minus the vigil, who will be showing up when you get to the underworld proper, as they are massing their forces in the below.
Minus the most important one, the superpowered spirit of dampness.
If everyone agrees upon this, yes. Which I think you're going
Does
to.
anyone have a serious
Does anyone
dissenting
actually
vote
have
to
an
cast
opposition
against Dragon?
No.
But what if we give it to the shitty tree child?
What if we give Woodchild
Or Clay Boss.
or Full Circle with Mud Boss?
I like the plan of Damus.
The real answer is that they're all funny.
To me, it was either Dampmas or Giant Crocodile near Don't.
Crocodile is a god, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's on elemental.
Super God.
Super
He
God
could
level
promote
2.
He could promote the crocodile, but it would not be an elemental dragon, so there would not be the ability to manipulate the ley lines.
Oh. I did have one thing once we're finished with this current thing, but that was it.
Yeah, I'm basically done with, and y'all can do what you need to wrap up for the night. So, go on.
Sometime probably towards the night of one of these things, Angler's going to get up and go find a rock face nearby that's probably about 15 to 25 feet tall. And he's just going to start to paint. He's going to start at the top of the rock face, and before he really starts to realize what he's doing, he takes off his headband and kind of runs it through his hands a couple times to get the idea of the lines on it, and he begins to make a much grander form of the lines on his headbands, which forms a cascading waterfall from the top all the way down to the bottom, with rocks and streams and pathways, and he's just going to recreate that on the actual rock face.
Alright, finesse craft with the stunt.
Suggestion that I will finish resolving this as you go.
Go ahead.
Finish resolving this, and then I will.
Yeah, it is quite well done. You spend a couple of hours in the night working on it, and it is a higher detailed, higher surface area reflection of your headband and the flowing waters on it, and it is immediately just notable as just quite high quality work.
And Angler's going to see that and for a second be happy with it, and then it's just not enough. It's not enough. And he's going to take 2 fingers and run it back the left side of his head and find the spot where he turned off his senses earlier when he went into the Fey realm and press in and do that twist he did before to turn his senses back on. I need to be able to see a little bit better when I do this. And he's going to, because it's dark, start to let the light shine a little bit more so he can actually see what he's doing. And he's going to whitewash the walls with, power wash the walls with high pressure volume that he can press out from being a water aspect, and then do it again.
Yep, and your bioluminescence is both brighter, and there are now more patches across your body than there were before.
Okay.
Oh wait,
actually, you know what? No, I don't even think Angler notices. I think he's just turning on the light. He doesn't realize it's more.
Yeah, I thought you mentioned that you did want.
Oh yeah. But it's that's going to play into that. It's just Angler doesn't realize.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just he's gonna think, oh, it's getting dawn soon. It's been dawn for about 3 hours. Nope, don't care. And he's gonna keep painting.
2 in the zone. All right. So, Loon.
Just had a thought for what will probably make the most sense for a mechanical underwriting for the very serious suggestion of, hey, let's get you a stand. It's easy to overlook using Princes of the Earth for anything, but if you just went ahead and used that to claim a 4-point ally, which lands somewhere between a young Exalt or Lesser God and an experienced Exalt or Greater God, to just get a veteran heroic ghost stapled to
Yang.
The Yang.
Yeah, I don't have the list on hand. I will probably go back to the VOD and look at the lieutenants I had with Praise and pick one of them to be with Yang.
Yeah, we can sort out an idea for who will make the most sense to bring along.
Yeah. But yeah. Next time, most of the preparation is done. The descent may begin, and then the final stretch. The stakes are truly been made. It is not just one Abyssal's tantrum against heaven. It is a Death Lord trying to screw with the fundamental pieces of reality and isn't dangerously close to having a shot at making it work. Next time, can our heroes stop that?
No.
Hopefully.
That's the end.
The end. No moral.
Oh, you bet we're stopping this.
That was a pretty fucked up story.
I got a home to make afterwards.
And then the front fell off.
Pick it up and put it
Next
back
time.
on.
Y'all have a good night, everyone.